The afternoon sun beat down on the freshly mowed grass of Riverside High's soccer field. 17-year-old Devin carried his old gym bag over his shoulder, trying to calm the butterflies in his stomach. This was his third school in 2 years, and starting over never got easier. His family had moved again because of his dad's job, and here he was, the new kid trying to fit in somewhere he didn't know anyone. He could see the team gathered near the goalposts. Maybe 20 guys in matching practice jerseys. Some were stretching, others kicking balls back and forth. Devin took a deep breath and started walking toward them. This was it. Soccer was the one thing that always made sense to him, the one place where he usually felt like he belonged. As he got closer, he noticed a few players stop what they were doing and turn to look at him. Their expressions weren't exactly friendly. One tall guy with blonde hair and the captain's armband nudged his friend and said something Devin couldn't hear. Whatever it was made the friend smirk and cross his arms. Devin kept walking. He'd dealt with this before. Not everyone was welcoming to new players, especially mid-season. Sometimes guys felt threatened, worried about losing their spot on the team. He got it. He just had to prove himself on the field and things would be fine. Coach Henderson was a stocky man in his 50s with a whistle around his neck and a clipboard in his hand. He looked up as Devin approached and gave him a firm handshake. "Glad you made it. Everyone listen up," the coach called out, his voice carrying across the field. The players stopped their drills and gathered around. "This is Devin. He's transferring from Lincoln High and he'll be trying out for striker. I want you all to make him feel welcome and show him how we do things here at Riverside." The coach's words hung in the air. A few players nodded politely. Most just stared. The blonde captain, whose jersey read Mitchell on the back, looked Devin up and down with barely concealed contempt. Standing next to him were 3 other guys who seemed to be his closest friends. They all had that same look, like Devin was something they'd scraped off their cleats. "All right, Devin, why don't you introduce yourself?" Coach Henderson said cheerfully, clearly not picking up on the tension. Devin cleared his throat. "Hey, everyone. Like Coach said, I'm Devin. Just moved here from across the state. Looking forward to playing with you guys and helping the team however I can." He extended his hand toward Mitchell, trying to be respectful. The captain looked at his hand like it was covered in dirt, then gave it the weakest, most dismissive shake Devin had ever received. The 3 friends didn't even bother pretending. One of them, a guy with red hair and freckles, just turned away. Another, who looked like he spent more time in the gym than on the field, snorted and said something under his breath to the 3rd guy. Devin pulled his hand back and tried not to let it show on his face. He'd been through worse. He could handle a few unfriendly teammates. "Great, now that we've got introductions out of the way, everyone start warming up. 5 laps around the field, then we'll do some passing drills," Coach Henderson ordered, already looking back down at his clipboard. The team spread out and started jogging. Devin fell in with the pack, keeping a steady pace. He noticed Mitchell and his friends running together, occasionally glancing back at him and laughing about something. Devin focused on his breathing and tried to ignore them. After the laps, Coach Henderson set up cones for passing drills. Players paired up quickly, and Devin found himself standing alone. Everyone seemed to already have their partner. The coach noticed and pointed at one of the younger players, a skinny kid who looked like a freshman. "Tommy, you work with Devin." Tommy looked relieved to have a partner but also nervous. As they started the drill, passing the ball back and forth between cones, Devin tried to make conversation. "How long have you been on the team?" "This is my first year," Tommy said quietly, his eyes darting toward Mitchell and his group. "Cool. You're pretty good with your left foot." Tommy gave a small smile but didn't say much else. Devin got the feeling the kid was scared to be seen talking to him too much. The drill went smoothly until Coach Henderson rotated partners. Now Devin was paired with Mitchell. The captain took his position across from Devin, that same contemptuous look on his face. When it was Mitchell's turn to pass, he kicked the ball hard and wide, forcing Devin to chase after it. Devin ran it down and brought it back, saying nothing. On the next pass, Mitchell did the same thing, this time even further to the side. His friends, watching from their own drill station, started laughing. "Sorry, new guy. Guess my aim's off today," Mitchell said with a smirk that made it clear it was no accident. Devin retrieved the ball again. He could feel his jaw tightening, but he kept his expression neutral. His mom had always told him that people like this wanted a reaction. They wanted him to get angry, to give them an excuse to label him as a problem. He wouldn't give them that satisfaction, The drills continued and the pattern became clear. Whenever Devin was involved, the ball somehow always ended up far from where it should be. When he called for a pass during a possession exercise, players would ignore him and pass to someone else even when he was wide open. Mitchell made sure to comment loudly whenever Devin touched the ball. "Yo, watch out, new guy's gonna try something," he'd announce, making the others laugh. During a water break, Devin overheard part of a conversation between Mitchell and the muscular guy whose jersey said, "Peterson. Can't believe coach brought him in. We don't need that on our team, right? Like we're supposed to just accept." They noticed Devin nearby and stopped talking, but the damage was done. Devin knew exactly what they meant. This wasn't about him being new or about protecting roster spots. This was about something else entirely. Something he'd hoped he wouldn't have to deal with at this school. He took a long drink from his water bottle and stared out at the field. The sun was starting to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the grass. Part of him wanted to grab his bag and leave, to tell his parents this school wasn't going to work out either. But another part of him, the part that had spent countless hours practicing in empty parking lots and community fields, refused to give up. Coach Henderson blew his whistle. "All right, let's finish with a scrimmage. I'll divide you into 2 teams. Devin's heart beat a little faster. This was his chance. Not to make friends or win anyone over with words, but to show them what he could actually do. To prove that whatever assumptions they'd made about him were wrong. As the coach divided the teams, Mitchell made sure Devin ended up on the weaker side, with mostly younger or less skilled players. Tommy ended up on Devin's team too, along with a few others who looked like they rarely got much playing time. "This should be fun," Mitchell announced to his stacked team, which included all 3 of his friends plus the best players on the squad. "Try to keep up, new guy." Devin took his position on the field. His hands weren't shaking anymore. The nervousness was gone, replaced by something else. Focus, determination, and a quiet resolve to show these guys exactly who they were messing with. He stretched his legs one more time and rolled his shoulders back. The worn soccer cleats on his feet had taken him through 2 state championships at his old school. They'd carried him through early morning practices when he was the only one on the field. Through summer heat and winter cold, through moments when he'd wanted to quit but didn't. These guys had no idea who he was or where he came from. They'd made up their minds based on nothing but what they saw on the surface. Mitchell stood at midfield for the kickoff, bouncing on his toes with that same arrogant smirk. His friends were spread across their formation, clearly confident this would be an easy win. Tommy lined up next to Devin, looking anxious. "They're really good," he whispered. "Mitchell scored 4 goals last game." Devin nodded but didn't respond. He was watching the other team's positioning, noting how they shifted their weight where they liked to send the ball. He'd learned a long time ago that you could tell a lot about players in the first few seconds of a game. The whistle blew, and the game began. Mitchell's team controlled the ball from the start. They moved it around with practiced ease, barely letting Devin's team touch it. Peterson, the muscular guy, sent a long pass down the right wing. Their forward collected it and crossed it into the box. Mitchell was there, timing his run perfectly, and headed it into the net, 1-0. 15 seconds into the game, Mitchell jogged back to his position with his arms spread wide, soaking in the cheers from his friends. He made sure to run past Devin. "Welcome to Riverside," he said with a laugh. Devin said nothing. He just walked back to his position and waited for the restart. Tommy looked discouraged already, his shoulders slumped. The other players on their team seemed to share the same defeated energy. The game continued, and it got worse before it got better. Mitchell's team played keep away, passing the ball between themselves like Devin's team wasn't even there. They were showing off now, doing unnecessary tricks and flicks. Every time Devin got close to the ball, 2 or 3 opponents would swarm him, making it impossible to do anything. At the 10-minute mark, Mitchell scored again. This time he celebrated by doing a dance that his friends had clearly seen before, because they all joined in, laughing and pointing toward Devin's team. Coach Henderson didn't say anything. He just stood on the sideline, watching with his arms crossed, 2-0. Devin could feel the frustration building in his chest, but he forced it down. Getting emotional wouldn't help. He needed to stay calm and wait for his moment. There would be an opening eventually. There always was. The third goal came 5 minutes later. The red-haired guy whose jersey said Collins on the back took a shot from outside the box that their goalkeeper never had a chance to save. Collins ran toward Devon's side of the field after scoring, cupping his hand to his ear like he was listening for applause. "Can't hear you over there," Collins shouted toward Devon and Tommy. "Maybe try actually playing." 3-0. The scrimmage was turning into a complete embarrassment. Devon noticed something, though. Mitchell's team was getting cocky. They weren't tracking back on defense as carefully anymore. They were so focused on humiliating Devon's team that they'd started taking risks, pushing more players forward than they should. Tommy managed to win the ball in midfield, surprising even himself. He looked up, panicked, not sure what to do with it. Devon was standing about 30 yards away, marked by only one defender. Everyone else on Mitchell's team had pushed up, expecting another easy attack. "Tommy, here," Devon called out, raising his hand. Tommy hesitated for a second, then passed the ball in Devon's direction. It wasn't a great pass, a bit behind Devon and bouncing awkwardly. The defender saw his chance and rushed forward, ready to intercept. But Devon had already read the bounce. He let the ball come across his body, then flicked it up with his right foot in one smooth motion. The ball sailed over the defender's head. Devon spun around him and collected the ball on the other side, all in the space of about 2 seconds. The defender stumbled, completely wrong-footed. He reached out and grabbed Devon's shirt, trying to slow him down, but Devon shrugged him off and kept moving forward. Now it was just Devon and one more defender between him and the goal. Mitchell saw what was happening and started sprinting back, shouting at his teammate to stop Devon. But he was too far away. Devon approached the last defender at full speed. The guy set his feet, ready to make a tackle. At the last possible moment, Devon dropped his shoulder to the right like he was going to cut that direction. The defender bit on the fake and lunged right. Devon smoothly shifted the ball to his left foot and glided past him the other way. The goalkeeper came off his line, trying to close down the angle. Devon was about 20 yards out now, still moving forward. He could take another touch, get closer, make it easier. But he'd seen the goalkeeper's positioning. He was favoring his right side, expecting Devon to try to round him. Devon struck the ball with his left foot, keeping it low and sending it toward the far post. The goalkeeper dove, stretching his body, his fingers reaching. The ball skipped just past his hand and rolled into the corner of the net. Goal. For a moment, everything was quiet. Devon stood there, breathing hard, watching the ball settle in the back of the net. He didn't celebrate, didn't pump his fist or shout. He just turned around and started jogging back to his half of the field. Tommy was the first to react, running toward Devon with his arms up. "That was incredible. Did you see that move?" A couple of other players on their team joined in, patting Devon on the back and congratulating him. But Devon's focus was already on Mitchell and his friends. They weren't laughing anymore. Mitchell's face had gone red, whether from running or anger, Devon couldn't tell. Collins and Peterson were looking at each other with confused expressions, like they couldn't quite believe what they'd just seen. "Lucky shot," Mitchell called out loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Won't happen again." The game restarted and Mitchell's team came at them hard. They weren't playing around anymore. The cocky showboating was gone, replaced by aggressive, determined play. They wanted to put this game away and make Devon's goal look like a fluke. But something had shifted. Tommy wasn't playing scared anymore. Neither were the other guys on Devon's team. That one goal had given them hope, shown them that Mitchell's team wasn't invincible. Devon could feel it too. That familiar rhythm was starting to flow through him. The one that came when he was really in the zone. His touches felt cleaner. His vision of the field seemed sharper. He could see plays developing before they happened. Mitchell's team maintained pressure, though. They scored their fourth goal when Peterson powered through 2 defenders and slotted it past the keeper. 4-1, they were still dominating the scoreline, but the energy had changed. Devon won the ball near midfield again. This time Mitchell came at him immediately, trying to shut him down before he could get going. Devon could see the anger in Mitchell's eyes, the need to prove that the first goal was just luck. Mitchell lunged in with a hard tackle, but Devon pulled the ball back at the last second. Mitchell's momentum carried him past, and he ended up sliding across the grass, getting dirt all over his jersey. Devon accelerated into the space Mitchell had left behind. Collins tried to step up and challenge, but Devon hit him with a quick step-over followed by a sharp cut to the inside. Collins lunged but missed, his feet getting tangled as he tried to change direction. He went down in a heap. Now Peterson was coming across and he was faster than the others. Devon could see him closing in from the side. There wasn't much time. He was near the edge of the box, about 25 yards from goal. The goalkeeper was positioned well this time, not giving away any obvious angles. Devon didn't overthink it. He struck the ball with the outside of his right foot, putting spin on it. The ball curved away from Peterson's sliding tackle and bent through the air in a wicked arc. The goalkeeper jumped, but the curve took the ball just beyond his reach. It dipped at the last second and crashed into the side netting. Goal, 4-2. This time Devon allowed himself a small smile. Not a celebration exactly, just a quiet acknowledgement of what he'd done. Tommy and the others mobbed him, their excitement impossible to contain. Even some of the guys who'd been cold to him earlier were looking impressed. Mitchell stood with his hands on his hips, staring at Devon. The captain's whole attitude had changed. He wasn't smirking anymore. He looked frustrated, confused, maybe even a little worried. "Who is this guy?" Devon heard Collins mutter to Peterson. Coach Henderson was paying full attention now, his clipboard forgotten in his hand. He was watching Devon with an expression that suggested he was seeing something he hadn't expected. The scrimmage continued, but everyone knew the real story had already been written. Devon had gone from being dismissed and mocked to being the most dangerous player on the field. And there were still 20 minutes left to play. Mitchell gathered his team for a quick huddle. Devon couldn't hear what was being said, but he could see Mitchell gesturing emphatically, clearly trying to fire up his team. When they broke the huddle, all of them were staring at Devon with a new intensity. This wasn't going to be easy. But Devon had never expected it to be. He'd spent his whole life proving himself to people who doubted him. This was just another day, another field, another group of people who'd underestimated him. The difference was, now they knew better, and the game was far from over. The game kicked off again, and Mitchell's team came at them like a storm. Whatever Mitchell had said in that huddle, it worked. They were pressing harder, running faster, and playing with an edge that bordered on aggressive. Devon could feel it in every challenge, every shoulder-to-shoulder battle for the ball. Peterson crashed into Tommy during a 50-50 ball, sending the younger player sprawling to the ground. The hit was hard enough that Tommy stayed down for a moment, wincing and holding his side. Coach Henderson blew his whistle and called for a stoppage, but he didn't give Peterson more than a warning look. "Get up," Peterson muttered as he walked past Tommy. "This is soccer, not ballet." Devon jogged over and helped Tommy to his feet. "You good?" Tommy nodded, though he was clearly shaken. "Yeah, I'm okay. Stay close to me," Devon said quietly. "They're rattled. That's why they're playing dirty." And they were rattled. Devon could see it in everything they did. Mitchell was barking orders at his teammates, his usual cool confidence replaced by something more desperate. Collins kept glancing over at Devon whenever the ball was dead, like he was trying to figure out a puzzle he couldn't solve. The game resumed, and Devon's team had a throw-in near midfield. One of the younger players, a kid named Chris who hadn't said much all practice, threw the ball to Devon's feet. Mitchell was on him instantly, not giving him any space to turn. Devon shielded the ball with his body, feeling Mitchell pressing against his back. He could hear the captain's frustrated breathing, feel the tension in every push and shove. Mitchell was trying to muscle him off the ball, but Devon stayed balanced, waiting for the right moment. He felt Mitchell lean in a bit too much, putting too much weight forward. In that split second, Devon spun away, using Mitchell's own momentum against him. The ball stayed glued to Devon's foot as he turned, and Mitchell stumbled forward, nearly falling. Devon was free now, with space to run. He could see the field opening up in front of him. Collins was rushing over to cover, but he was 10 yards away. Peterson was tracking back, but he'd been caught too far upfield. Devon pushed the ball forward and accelerated. Collins arrived and tried to position himself between Devon and the goal, but Devon already knew what he was going to do. He'd seen Collins's defensive tendencies throughout the scrimmage. The guy always committed too early, always lunged when he should have stayed patient. Sure enough, Collins dove in with a sliding tackle. Devon dragged the ball to the side with the sole of his foot, and Collins slid harmlessly past, his cleats scraping against the grass. Now there was just Peterson and the goalkeeper left. Peterson was a good defender, probably the best on Mitchell's team. He didn't rush in like the others had. He kept his position, backpedaling carefully, trying to shepherd Devon toward the sideline where his options would be limited. But Devon had no intention of going to the sideline. He was about 30 yards out when he saw Tommy making a run down the left side, completely unmarked. Mitchell's team had been so focused on stopping Devon that they'd forgotten about everyone else. Devon looked up at the goal like he was about to shoot. Peterson shifted his weight ready to block. Instead, Devon passed the ball across the field with the outside of his foot, a perfectly weighted ball that rolled right into Tommy's path. Tommy was so surprised to receive the ball in that much space that he almost messed up his first touch. But he controlled it, looked up, and saw the goalkeeper scrambling to adjust his position. Tommy took 2 steps and shot. The ball rolled along the grass, heading toward the far post. The goalkeeper dove desperately, his fingers brushing the ball but not enough to stop it. The ball crossed the line. Goal, 4-3. Tommy turned around with his mouth open in shock, like he couldn't believe what he'd just done. Then his face broke into the biggest smile Devon had seen all day. The rest of their team surrounded him, celebrating like they'd won the championship. Devon jogged over and gave Tommy a high five. "Nice finish." "You set that up perfectly," Tommy said, still grinning. "I've never scored in a scrimmage before." On the other side of the field, Mitchell was losing it. He was yelling at Peterson and Collins, his face red and his hands waving wildly. "How do you let that happen? It's one guy, one guy." Coach Henderson watched everything with his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. But Devon caught him glancing down at his clipboard and making a note. The coach wasn't missing any of this. Mitchell's team had the ball again, and they were playing with an almost frantic energy now. They needed to score, needed to put this game away before it slipped completely out of their control. Collins took a shot from distance that sailed over the crossbar. Peterson tried to dribble through 3 defenders and lost the ball. Then Devon intercepted a sloppy pass near the halfway line. The moment his foot touched the ball, he knew. This was it. This was the moment. He drove forward with the ball, and this time Mitchell didn't wait. He came charging in from the side, not even trying to disguise his frustration anymore. It was a reckless challenge, studs showing, the kind of tackle that could hurt someone. Devon saw it coming. At the last possible second, he flicked the ball up with his toe, hopping over Mitchell's outstretched leg. The ball sailed over both of them, and Devon landed on the other side, collecting it again without breaking stride. Mitchell crashed into the ground, his tackle missing completely. He slammed his fist against the grass in frustration. "Come on, ref," Collins shouted toward Coach Henderson, appealing for a foul that everyone knew wasn't there. Devon was in full flight now. Peterson was the last defender, and he looked tired, his shoulders heaving with each breath. Devon could see it in his eyes, the recognition that he'd been beaten. But Peterson had to try. He had to do something. He stepped up to challenge, but Devon was ready. He performed a move he'd practiced thousands of times in his backyard, a quick cut followed by a burst of acceleration that left Peterson grasping at air. Now it was just Devon and the goalkeeper, one-on-one for the 3rd time. The keeper was good, had made a couple of decent saves earlier. He came off his line aggressively, trying to make himself big, trying to cut down the angles. Devon kept his cool. He waited until the goalkeeper committed, started to go down, and then he calmly lifted the ball over him with a delicate chip. The ball hung in the air for what felt like forever, arcing gently toward the goal. It dropped just under the crossbar and into the net. 4-4. Devon stood there for a moment, watching the ball settle. Then he raised one fist in the air just once. It wasn't showboating. It wasn't meant to disrespect anyone. It was just acknowledgement. He'd done what he came to do. His teammates went crazy. Tommy was jumping up and down. Chris was screaming. Even some of the guys who'd been quiet earlier were celebrating, caught up in the impossible comeback they were witnessing. Mitchell was on his knees in the grass, his head down. His friends looked shell-shocked, like they couldn't process what was happening. They'd been up 4-0 20 minutes ago. Now the game was tied, and they had no answers. Coach Henderson finally moved from his spot on the sideline. He walked a few steps onto the field, his whistle in his hand, but he didn't blow it. He was watching Devin with a look that Devin had seen before from other coaches. It was the look of someone seeing real talent, the kind that didn't come around often. The scrimmage continued for another 10 minutes. Mitchell's team tried to score, pushed everyone forward in desperate attempts to regain the lead. But their confidence was shattered. Their passes were sloppy. Their touches were heavy. They looked like a completely different team from the one that had started the game. Devin's team grew stronger as Mitchell's team grew weaker. They were passing better, moving better, playing with a belief they didn't have before. Tommy was making runs he never would have attempted earlier. Chris was winning tackles he would have pulled out of before. Then, with about 3 minutes left in the scrimmage, Devin got the ball one more time. He was near the sideline, about 40 yards from goal. 3 defenders stood between him and the net. The smart play would be to pass, to keep possession, to see out the tie. But Devin had never been one to play it safe. He started his run cutting inside, the ball seeming to move with him like it was tied to his foot by an invisible string. The first defender lunged and missed. The second tried to grab his shirt, but Devin spun away. The third, Peterson again, looked exhausted and could only watch as Devin glided past him. Mitchell came across from the other side, making one last desperate attempt to stop him. But he was too late, too slow, too beaten. Devin was in the box now, the goalkeeper coming out. He could shoot. He could score his 4th goal. But out of the corner of his eye he saw Tommy making another run. And something made him choose differently. He passed the ball across the goal mouth and Tommy was there. The ball hit his foot and rolled into the empty net. 5-4. Tommy dropped to his knees in disbelief. The rest of the team piled on top of him. Devin stood back watching, a small smile on his face. Coach Henderson blew the final whistle. The scrimmage was over. The celebration on Devin's side of the field was pure joy. Players who barely knew each other's names were hugging like they'd won a championship. Tommy had tears in his eyes, overwhelmed by the moment. Chris was replaying the goals in real time, his hands gesturing wildly as he described each one to anyone who would listen. On the other side, Mitchell's team stood in stunned silence. Collins had his hands on his head, staring at the ground. Peterson was bent over, hands on his knees, looking completely drained. Mitchell himself stood apart from his friends, his jaw clenched tight, watching Devin with an expression that was hard to read. It wasn't quite anger anymore. It was something else, something closer to disbelief. Coach Henderson walked to the center of the field and blew his whistle 3 times, sharp and loud. The celebrating stopped. Everyone turned to look at him. "Water break," he announced. "Everyone grab your bottles and meet me back here in 5 minutes. We need to talk." The team dispersed toward their bags on the sideline. Devin grabbed his water bottle and took a long drink, finally allowing himself to feel the exhaustion. His legs were burning. His lungs were working hard. But it was the good kind of tired, the kind that came from leaving everything on the field. Tommy jogged over, still grinning from ear to ear. "That was the most amazing thing I've ever been part of. Where did you learn to play like that?" Devin shrugged, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Just practiced a lot, I guess." "A lot?" "Dude, you made Mitchell look like he'd never played before, and he's been captain 2 years in a row." Before Devin could respond, he noticed something happening near Mitchell's group. One of the guys had pulled out his phone and was typing rapidly, his eyes moving between the screen and Devin. It was Collins. After a moment, his eyes went wide. He showed the phone to Peterson, whose mouth literally dropped open. "No way," Peterson said, loud enough that several people nearby turned to look. "Are you serious?" Collins nodded, then they both looked over at Devin. Mitchell noticed what was happening and walked over to them. Collins handed him the phone. Devin watched as Mitchell's face went through several emotions in quick succession. Confusion, then shock, then something that might have been embarrassment. Mitchell looked up from the phone and stared at Devin for a long moment. Then he turned away, running his hand through his hair. Coach Henderson's whistle cut through the air again. "Let's go, everyone. Circle up." The team gathered around the coach, forming a loose circle on the grass. Devin ended up standing between Tommy and Chris. Mitchell and his friends were directly across from him, and Devin could feel their eyes on him. Coach Henderson looked around at all of them, his expression serious. "That was quite a scrimmage," he said, his voice carrying across the circle. "One of the most interesting I've seen in my 23 years of coaching." He paused, letting that sink in. "I saw a team that started out playing well, confident, in control. And I saw that same team fall apart when things didn't go their way." His eyes moved to Mitchell's group. "I saw players lose their composure. I saw sloppy tackles. I saw frustration turn into reckless play." Mitchell's face reddened, but he didn't look away. "I also saw a team that was down 4-0 and didn't quit." Coach Henderson continued, his gaze shifting to Devin's side. "I saw players who found something inside themselves they didn't know was there. I saw what real team spirit looks like." He walked a few steps, positioning himself so he could see everyone. "But more than anything, I saw how some of you treated a new teammate today. And I want to be very clear about something. I saw everything. I heard everything. From the moment Devin walked onto this field, the air seemed to get heavier. Several players shifted uncomfortably." Mitchell closed his eyes briefly. "I could have stepped in earlier," the coach admitted. "Part of me wanted to. But I've learned over the years that sometimes people need to learn lessons the hard way. Sometimes they need to see for themselves why their assumptions are wrong." He looked directly at Mitchell now. "You made judgments about someone based on nothing. You didn't know his name, didn't know where he came from, didn't know anything about him. But you decided he didn't belong here. And you made sure he felt unwelcome." Mitchell's jaw tightened, but he nodded slightly, acknowledging the truth of it. "Here's what you didn't know," Coach Henderson said. "Devin here transferred from Lincoln High. Some of you might have heard of them. They won the state championship last year." He paused. Devin was their leading scorer, 23 goals in 18 games. He was offered spots at 3 different elite soccer academies. College scouts have been watching him since he was 14. The silence that followed was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop on the grass. Collins and Peterson looked at each other in shock. Several other players' mouths were hanging open. Mitchell just stared at Devin, his face a mixture of emotions. "He didn't transfer because of any problem," the coach continued. "His father got a job opportunity here and the family moved. Devin could have gone to any school in the district. He chose Riverside because he heard we had a good program and a team that played together." Coach Henderson's voice got harder. "Instead, he walked into a group of players who mocked him, excluded him, and treated him with disrespect from the first minute." Tommy spoke up quietly. "We didn't know." "That's exactly the point," Coach Henderson said. "You shouldn't need to know someone's credentials to treat them with basic respect. You don't need to see a resume before you decide someone deserves common decency." He walked over to stand beside Devin. "This young man could have complained to me. He could have gotten angry and started a fight. He could have quit and gone to another school. Instead, he let his play do the talking. He showed more maturity and class in 2 hours than some of you have shown all season." Devin felt uncomfortable with all the attention. He hadn't done this for recognition or to prove a point. He'd just done what he always did, play soccer. "Mitchell," Coach Henderson said, "you and Peterson, Collins, and anyone else who participated in making Devin feel unwelcome, you're benched for the next 2 games. "Coach, come on," Peterson protested. "We have Westfield next week. They're first in the division." "Then you should have thought about that before you decided to be part of this," the coach said firmly. "Actions have consequences. This isn't just about soccer. It's about character. It's about what kind of men you're going to become." Mitchell didn't protest. He just nodded, his face serious. "Yes, Coach." "Additionally," Coach Henderson continued, "all of you will attend a mandatory team workshop next Saturday morning. We're going to talk about respect, inclusion, and what it really means to be a team. And it's not optional. If you don't show up, you're off the team. Understood?" A chorus of "Yes, Coach" went around the circle. "Good." The coach's expression softened slightly. "Now here's the other side of this. What I saw today also showed me something positive. I saw that when you work together, when you support each other, this team can do incredible things." That comeback was remarkable, not because of one player, but because you started playing as a unit. He looked around at all of them. "That's what I want to see from now on. Every practice, every game. You don't have to be best friends with everyone on this team, but you do have to respect each other. You do have to have each other's backs, because that's what a team is." Coach Henderson clapped his hands once. "All right, hit the showers. Practice tomorrow at the same time." "Devin, hang back for a minute." The circle broke up. Players started walking toward the locker rooms, talking quietly among themselves. Devin noticed Mitchell walking slowly, his head down, his friends beside him having a serious conversation. Tommy gave Devin a quick pat on the shoulder as he passed. "See you tomorrow, man." When everyone else had cleared out, Coach Henderson turned to Devin. His stern expression melted away, replaced by a genuine smile. "That was one hell of a performance," he said. "Your old coach at Lincoln told me you were good, but I didn't realize just how good until today." Devin blinked. "You talked to Coach Williams?" "Of course I did. You think I don't do my research on new players?" Henderson chuckled. "He spoke very highly of you. Not just your skills, but your character. He said you were one of the hardest working, most humble players he'd ever coached." "He was a great coach," Devin said. "He also warned me that you'd probably face some challenges here. He said you'd handle them with grace." Coach Henderson looked Devin in the eye. He was right. You could have made today ugly. Instead, you made it into a teaching moment. Devin didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. "I'm glad you chose Riverside," the coach said. "I think you're going to make us a much better team. Not just because of your talent, but because of who you are. We needed someone to show these guys what real leadership looks like." "Thank you, Coach. Go shower up." "And Devin?" The coach smiled. "Welcome to the team. For real this time." Devin walked toward the locker room, his bag slung over his shoulder. The sun was getting lower in the sky now, casting long shadows across the field. His legs felt heavy, and all he wanted was a hot shower and maybe something to eat. It had been one of the longest days he could remember. He was almost to the building when he heard someone call his name. "Devin, wait up." He turned to see Mitchell jogging toward him. Devin's first instinct was to keep walking, but something made him stop. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was just exhaustion. Either way, he waited. Mitchell slowed as he got closer, and Devin could see the hesitation on his face. The captain looked different without his usual confident swagger. He looked younger somehow, more uncertain. "Can we talk for a minute?" Mitchell asked. Devin considered it for a moment, then nodded. "Sure." They stood there in awkward silence for a few seconds. Mitchell seemed to be struggling with how to start. He looked down at his cleats, then back up at Devin. "I was wrong," Mitchell finally said. "About everything. The way I acted, the things I said, the way I treated you. It was all wrong, and I'm sorry." Devin didn't respond right away. He wanted to hear more, to understand if this was genuine or just something Mitchell felt obligated to say because he got caught. Mitchell continued, his voice quieter now. "I looked you up on my phone. Saw your stats, the championship game highlights, all of it. Collins found an article about you from last year. They called you one of the top prospects in the state." He shook his head. "I made assumptions about you the second you walked onto that field. I didn't even give you a chance, and why?" Devin asked simply. Mitchell's face reddened. "Honestly, I don't have a good answer. My dad, he says things sometimes about people who don't look like us, and I guess I just absorbed it without really thinking about it. That's not an excuse," he added quickly. "It's just the truth. I was raised with certain ideas, and I never questioned them." Devin appreciated the honesty, even if the answer was painful to hear. "You know those ideas are garbage, right?" "I'm starting to get that," Mitchell said. "Watching you play today, seeing how wrong I was, it made me realize how stupid I've been. You're better than any player we've had on this team in years, maybe ever, and I almost missed that because I was too busy being an idiot." "It's not just about soccer," Devin said. "You treated me like I was less than you, like I didn't deserve to be here. That's not about stats or skills. That's about basic human respect." Mitchell nodded, his expression serious. "You're right. And I know saying sorry doesn't fix it. I know I can't take back what I did, but I want you to know that I heard what Coach said and he's right. I need to be better. I want to be better." Devin studied Mitchell's face, trying to gauge his sincerity. He'd heard apologies before that didn't mean anything. Words that people said just to make themselves feel better. But something in Mitchell's eyes told him this was different. This felt real. "Actions matter more than words," Devin said. "You can apologize all you want, but what really matters is what you do from here." "I know," Mitchell said. "And I'm going to prove it. To you, to the team, to everyone." Devin held out his hand. Mitchell looked at it, then gripped it firmly. This time it wasn't a weak, dismissive shake. It was solid, genuine. "Fresh start?" Mitchell asked. "Fresh start," Devin agreed. "But mess up again and we're done." "Fair enough. Mitchell managed a small smile. For what it's worth, that move you pulled on me during the scrimmage, the one where you spun around me, I've never been beaten that badly in my life. Despite everything, Devin felt a smile tugging at his lips. You left yourself open. Pushed too hard. Yeah, I noticed, Mitchell said dryly. Think you could teach me that move sometime? Maybe, Devin said. If you earn it. They stood there for another moment, and then Mitchell nodded and started walking toward the locker room. Devin watched him go, feeling something shift inside him. He wasn't naive enough to think one conversation fixed everything. Trust had to be rebuilt, and that took time. But it was a start. Inside the locker room, the atmosphere was different from what Devin had expected. Instead of the usual loud music and shouting, there was a subdued energy. Guys were getting changed quietly, lost in their own thoughts. When Devin walked in, several players looked up and nodded at him. A few even smiled. Tommy was at his locker, already changed into his regular clothes. When he saw Devin, his face lit up. There he is, the guy who just rewrote the record books. It was just a scrimmage, Devin said, setting his bag down. Just a scrimmage? Tommy laughed. Dude, you scored 3 goals and had 2 assists in a comeback from 4 goals down. That's legendary. Chris walked over, his phone in his hand. I've been texting my brother about it. He didn't believe me until I sent him the video. What video? Devin asked. Coach films all our scrimmages, Chris explained. It's automatic, the cameras are set up around the field. That means there's footage of everything that happened today. Devin hadn't known they were being recorded. He wondered if Mitchell and his friends had known. Probably not, based on how they'd acted. My brother wants to meet you, Chris continued. He plays for the community college team, and he said anyone who can play like that needs to be on their radar. Devin felt overwhelmed by the sudden attention. At his old school, he'd been good. But there had been other talented players, too. Here, it seemed like he stood out more. He wasn't sure how he felt about that. Peterson appeared from around the corner of the lockers. He looked uncomfortable, his hands shoved in his pockets. Devin, can I talk to you for a second? Tommy and Chris took the hint and moved away, giving them space. Peterson shifted his weight from foot to foot, clearly uncomfortable. I wanted to say I'm sorry, Peterson said, for how I acted today. The comments, the rough play, all of it. It was wrong. Mitchell already apologized, Devin said. Yeah, well, I need to do it too. I wasn't just following Mitchell. I made my own choices. Peterson looked Devin in the eye. I've got a cousin who's biracial. My aunt married a black guy, and their kid is one of my favorite people in the world. If someone treated him the way I treated you today, I'd want to punch them. But here I am, being that person to someone else. It's messed up. Devin could hear the genuine regret in Peterson's voice. We all make mistakes. The question is whether we learn from them. I'm going to, Peterson promised. And for what it's worth, you're an incredible player. It's an honor to have you on the team. He held out his fist and Devin bumped it with his own. Peterson nodded and walked away, leaving Devin alone with his thoughts. As he changed out of his practice gear, Devin reflected on the day. It had started with him being the outsider, the target of mockery and disrespect. It had been painful, frustrating, and exhausting, but it had also been a teaching moment, not just for Mitchell and his friends, but for the whole team. He thought about his mom's words before he left for practice that morning. She'd sensed his nervousness about starting at a new school, joining a new team. Just be yourself, she'd told him. Show them who you are through your actions. The right people will see it. She'd been right. He hadn't needed to fight or argue or demand respect. He just needed to be himself and let his character and abilities speak for themselves. Collins approached as Devin was tying his shoes. Unlike the others, he didn't look apologetic. He looked thoughtful. I've been thinking about what Coach said, Collins started, about making assumptions. I did that today and I was completely wrong. But the thing is, I've probably done it before to other people too, and I just never got called out on it. Devin appreciated that Collins was thinking deeper about the issue. Probably, he agreed. So I'm trying to figure out how to be more aware of it, Collins continued. How do you catch yourself before you make those assumptions? It was a good question, and Devin thought about it before answering. I think you just have to remember that everyone has a story you don't know. Everyone's dealing with things you can't see, so maybe the default should be kindness instead of judgment. Collins nodded slowly. That makes sense. Thanks, man, and I'm sorry for today. I know, Devin said, and I appreciate you actually thinking about it instead of just apologizing and moving on. By the time Devin finished getting ready and headed out of the locker room, the sun had set. The parking lot lights were on, casting a yellow glow over the few remaining cars. His dad was waiting in their old sedan, reading something on his phone. Devin opened the passenger door and dropped into the seat with a heavy sigh. "Long day?" his dad asked, looking over at him. "You have no idea," Devin said. "Want to talk about it?" Devin thought about everything that had happened. The disrespect, the comeback, the confrontation, the apologies. It was too much to explain right now. "Maybe later." "Not yet," he said. "But I think it's going to be okay here." His dad smiled and started the car. "That's good to hear, son. That's really good to hear." As they drove away from Riverside High, Devin looked back at the soccer field one last time. Tomorrow there would be another practice. More work to do, more bridges to build, more lessons to teach and learn. But tonight he'd proven something important. Not just to Mitchell and his friends, but to himself. He belonged here. And he always had.